What's it like to be traded twice in a span of 48 hours in the NHL? Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, bet on Betway. 19 plus, please play responsibly. It's been a wild month for Winnipeg Jets defenseman Luke Schenn, today's guest on Frankly Speaking, who was traded by the Nashville Predators to the Pittsburgh Penguins, flew to Las Vegas to join the Pens, and then was quickly shipped back to the Western Conference to join the Winnipeg Jets for their playoff chase. And oh, by the way, wasn't necessarily thinking about all that coming together because he's not a traditional trade deadline acquisition because he's not a pending unrestricted free agent. He has 1 year left on his deal. What's it like navigating all of that as a professional athlete, saying goodbye to your family and barely seeing them over the span of the last month, and also trying to play at an extremely high level? We got into that and so much more for a guy who hit 1,000 games in his NHL career earlier this season and could potentially be on a collision course with his younger brother Braden in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. For a guy who's reinvented himself a couple times throughout the course of his career, it's been a fascinating journey to this point, and this season took an even more wild turn. Here's my conversation with Winnipeg Jets defenseman Luke Schenn. Luke Schenn, I'm wondering if there's a word that could describe what the last month or so has been like for you.
It was, well, I don't know. It's been a whirlwind. It's been, I guess, overwhelming at times, and yet exciting. And yeah, it's just been, I guess, it came as a pretty big shock, I would say, to get traded and then traded again. 24 hours later, I didn't really have any of that, as far as every time I try to think, I got some stability and, you got a bit of an eye on the future is when things typically seem to get flipped upside down for me. So yeah, I didn't expect this at all. Obviously went to a great team, a team that's having a tremendous regular season, but, obviously Nashville is not having a good year. So, obviously you expect some change, but just, I had another year left in my contract, so I wasn't totally expecting it. And here we are, and on to the next chapter.
I think just from a fan perspective, anyone who watches says, oh, hey, these guys make millions of dollars. They've got great lives, a lot of different things, on the surface seem to kind of come together for pro athletes, but I'm not sure that everyone necessarily sees the behind the scenes. So, when something like this happens, your life gets, shaken upside down. How do you process that? How do you handle it? And what's this been like for your family?
I mean, it's been difficult, not gonna lie, as far as, from a family perspective, it's been real hard. Obviously the hockey side has been great. It's been a great fit with the Jets, but, just from a family perspective, like you mentioned, I guess I'll kind of go a little bit back as far as, like you said, that the professional athlete side of things. Just, when my second son was born, it was right at the start of COVID. So, went into the bubble there and was fortunate and very grateful to win a Stanley Cup with Tampa. But, you're gone there for 3 months when my son was just born and came back for, he was different. So I left my wife there. And then the last time I got traded from Vancouver to Toronto was, pretty much at the deadline. And that happened to be the exact due date of our third child. So, that happened again. So my wife's kind of been, battling through all these sort of obstacles. And right when I sort of, thought I had a little stability and security, obviously towards, the back portion of my career is, when things kind of got shaken up upside down again. And, just in Nashville, we had a great, obviously life, outside of hockey, you start thinking about, your kids, great school. And we had a good, lots of good friends sort of meeting through the kids and their activities, and had a bit of a network outside the team. So yeah, we were comfortable there. And obviously, getting traded once again. Like I said, didn't expect it. But the hardest part is, just even before the trade, we were on about a 6 or 7 day road trip, doing both the New York teams and then in Boston. Got home at, probably 2 a.m. from Boston. Woke up the next morning, took the kids to school, took them to hockey, and then got traded that night. So coming off a road trip, got traded, and then, obviously went to meet the team in Vegas meet the Penguins in Vegas, and then flew back. And so I guess a long-winded answer. It's tough on the family. I think in the last, month plus, probably, 5 weeks, seen my kids probably for a total of 48 hours, which it's been real hard. And in saying that, the Jets organization's been incredible, and with in terms of how they take care of family and view family, and it's been their idea to trek back a couple of times when we've had 2 days off in between games. They tell me to go fly home for 24 hours. So I've been living on an airplane a little bit, just trying to, balance everything out with, family and hockey. And it's just not the easiest thing to move your entire family right now. I got 2 kids in school, and like I said, life's set up right there right now, and school only goes till the end of May in Nashville. So
Yeah, so all that's going on behind the scenes, and meanwhile, you got to focus on getting to a new team who's in a, in a great spot in the standings, and then you got to play well. So that's a lot to wrap your brain around. But I'm wondering if you can take me kind of back through the play-by-play of maybe that 48 hours. So you find out that you get traded in Nashville to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh says, "Hey, come meet us in Vegas." So you pack up your gear, say goodbye to your family, get on a flight to Vegas, and then you landed there, I guess, maybe Thursday night and found out you were traded Friday morning. How did that all work?
yeah, so like you said, I got traded Wednesday night, and then obviously I have a previous relationship with obviously Kyle Dubas and Jason Spezza from playing with the Leafs last time, and they're super easy guys to talk to. And for me, obviously, I've played with Spez before in World Championships and that sort of thing. So got on the phone with them, and I their intention was to keep me in Pittsburgh, and they wanted me to come meet the team in Vegas the next day. And obviously, I packed up, and you kind of look, obviously, standings wise, you'd think, okay, well, if you're going to get traded, you're probably going to go to a contender. And then for whatever reason, the trade happened with Pittsburgh, and Nashville moved me there. And then after talking to Kyle Dubas, after the trade and kind of everything settled, he said when he traded for me, he didn't realize sort of, what was going to be out there for me. And I think at the end of it, there was, I think, well, according to him, probably 4 to 6 teams, I guess, with offers on the table the morning of the deadline or the night before the deadline. So, and the offers, I guess, sort of getting a little bit more where I guess he had to consider. So yeah, it just kind of worked out that way. And from a Nashville standpoint, I'm not really sure what happened on that end, but ended up in Winnipeg, and kind of hearing some things behind the scenes of what happened afterwards. Yeah, it was surprising to end up in Pittsburgh, but like I said, it's all it was a whirlwind, because I flew out to meet the team in Vegas, got in at 10 p.m., which is midnight Nashville time. Woke up the next morning, the morning of the deadline, after not really sleeping, thinking, am I really staying here? Am I going to get flipped again? And so I didn't really sleep. Woke up. I called Dubas again, and just saying, hey, like, if you're going to flip me, I'm not going to come to the morning skate here and shake everyone's hand and try on new gear for you to, So yeah, I had a good conversation with him, and like guy or two off the Penguins, and yeah, I got flipped right away, and then I ended up going back. Winnipeg just said, go back to Nashville and go be with your family for the weekend here, just after sort of the whirlwind. So
Yeah, that's a lot happening at one period in time. I was told that when you did get to Vegas and you're trying to sift through everything and figure it all out, you had a chance to connect with Sid, who, I guess shared some words about, your situation and where you're heading. What was that like?
yeah, I mean, obviously, Sid obviously just unbelievable guy, so respected, and I kind of got to know him. Actually, he's really close with my brother Braden. They played in the World Championships years ago and became really close, and went on vacation, with McKinnon and Tyson Berry afterwards, after the tournament. And then, since then they've been kind of super close, and they go on golf trips every summer and that sort of thing together. And through Braden, I've kind of got to know Sid a little bit. And yeah, so when I got traded, he invited me. He's like, hey, come meet the boys for dinner in Vegas. And I'm like getting in late that night. It's not going to work. And then he ended up texting me early morning, probably around I don't know, 7:30 in the morning of the deadline. He just said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'm like, "You tell me." So he ended up coming to my room, and we ended up chatting for probably a little over an hour, and just you know, as we were kind of obviously you're 3 hours back of what's going on in the East, and yeah, just sort of talked a little bit, and he not I don't know gave advice or opinion, but just sort of a great guy to talk to. And then right after that, I ended up calling Kyle and just seeing, hey, what's going on here, and that's when things started kind of taking place after that. But yeah, I was a Pittsburgh Penguin for I don't even know 24 hours, and it was hilarious because Mike Sullivan called me a couple times, and he's like, I didn't even know what to say to you. I didn't even get the chance to meet you in person, just over the phone, and I was off to the next spot.
I was going to ask if they're going to retire your jersey, but I don't even know if you got a jersey number.
Shortest stint in Penguins history, I'm assuming. So
Wow.
yeah, everyone said, "Oh, I know, you're in whatever. This is 10th team," and I'm not counting this one, so that doesn't count. I don't think to not even get a practice under your belt.
It'd be a fun story. I know it's hard to laugh about now, but 10 years from now, maybe it'll bring a smile to your face.
You know what? With the way my career's gone through the ups and downs and sort of the unexpected twists and turns, I think I could write a hell of a book, and that would be a crazy part of it. That'd be one chapter of the whole whirlwind, being a Pittsburgh Penguin, but not even getting the chance to break in a pair of gloves or nothing.
Hey, I know someone who could write that.
Yeah, there you go.
Fair to say that this has been maybe the most stressful period of your career?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
you've had a couple because you referenced it briefly, but like you're down in the AHL, you were on waivers a couple times.
Yeah,
and you
no,
weren't
that's
sure
the
if
thing.
this was going to continue, and you've reinvented yourself time after time. Now this is a different kind of stress and pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's all different, right? I mean, like there's the stress, like you mentioned, of when you're excuse me, 700 something games in, and you clear waivers, and it's not a cap issue or money issue. It's literally you're passed up by every team in the league, and you think that's the end. That's a stressful time, thinking that it's the end, and then you kind of grind back, and I end up going back to Vancouver, and then went and signed in Tampa, and then boom, right out of training camp again, waivers. So there's that stress again. So yeah, I mean, getting sent down after so many games in the NHL, that's a stressful thing. But then obviously right at the top would probably be getting traded. When our third child and my daughter was born, that was obviously an unusual time. If you tell people sort of the whole sequence of events and the stories, it's been, like I said, quite the journey, and had a lot of people who we've relied on and leaned on to kind of help through it. It's not just me going through this. It's, like you said, family and extended family that's helping out.
And through all that, you play game number 1,000 this year. I don't know if they could they fit all your logos on one silver stick?
Yeah, I mean, it probably had to put an extension on the end of the shaft there. I'm guessing a big plug in it to get all the
Zdeno
teams on.
Chara length stick.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
they could fit 'em all?
exactly. Yeah, a little illegal there in length, but no, I mean, obviously we can joke around about it, but like I said, multiple teams, and
I mean, there was a stretch in time because of what we were just talking about. You were 700 and some games in, thinking, "Hey, this might be the end."
yeah, 100%. And it's in, like, when I was commuting back and forth, like I lived in Newport Beach and played in San Diego, just because we had our house there, and we were set up, and they didn't want to give me a housing letter to go get a place in San Diego. So I was driving back and forth, and I'd have some long conversations, on those drives with my dad and Braden, and sort of even my wife Jess, and some other close friends, just saying, what, somehow I'm going to get to 1,000, and I'm not sure how. And it wasn't so much the actual 1,000th game; it was more so like, I'm not done yet. It's kind of what the mindset was, and you kind of said earlier, reinvent, and I don't know if reinvent, but like I had to evolve, I guess, would be a better way of maybe doing it. Just obviously the game's changed, and the league, and just kind of figure out different ways of trying to bring value. I think that at the end of the day, that's what every player strives to do, and there's only so many guys who are running a power play, and so many guys that are putting up a certain amount of numbers, and a lot of guys got to find a role and for me, it's just try to bring value however I can, and yeah, continue to try to get better with age has been the mindset.
So you mentioned evolve, and you deserve the credit for that. But how much has working with Adam Oates helped you evolve and change your career? Is
Well, I
that
mean,
the turning point?
yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I would never be back in the NHL if I didn't get the chance to work with them. I've told the story before, but sort of it just kind of happened in line with what was happening with my brother in 2019, I think it was, in the Blues, where they were last place in the league. Braden was struggling, hadn't scored in probably 15 or 16 games. And there was trade talk, I think, of him at the time. And the only guy that was really having a bunch of success up front was Ryan O'Reilly, and he was working with OT at the time. And so he passed it on to Braden saying, hey, well, he's helped me out a lot. Maybe you should give him a call. So Braden did talk to OT, and then kind of started getting hot and started scoring, and the Blues started winning, and the rest is history. What happened that year? But in terms of Braden would, after probably a week or so of working with him, he OT said, told Braden, he goes, I never really go looking for clients or players. Typically they come to me, but I got to ask, like, what's going on with Luke? I used to coach against him, and he's in the minors now at, well, how old was I? 29 or whatever. What's happened? So Braden kind of passed on the message, and I gave him a call, and just by fluke, OT was doing a little bit of work at the time with the LA Kings. And so he was actually flying out to LA like a few days later, and I met him in LA just to kind of, have a beer with him and kind of pick his brain. And then I was like, hey, let's give this a try. And then a week later, I ended up getting traded to Vancouver, but the deal was I had to start in Utica. So I asked OT if he would come work with me in Utica. So he did, and came there for a few days, and I was with him on the ice for, probably a couple hours before the Utica Comets practice, and then after practice as well with OT. So just putting in some long shifts and just trying to understand sort of what he was teaching, and it started clicking a little bit and sort of telling me a lot of things that just for example, like, obviously being a bigger, heavier guy, everyone's kind of always on your skating, and try to get you to work with different skating coaches, or work on your edges, or change your stride, or try to lose 10 pounds, like all that sort of stuff to get you a better skater. And he just basically, I got news for you, like, you are what you are in terms of skating, like, why don't we get you thinking a little bit different? So every single shift of your life, you're not fighting for your life out there in a foot race. Like, you can think the game in different ways where you're maybe reading the game a little bit better. So just all these different sort of things where he started teaching me. And then the biggest thing is handling the puck. I got taught or told lots by coaches to not handle the puck. They would say, don't stick handle it, just get rid of it. But you have to go back and make a play under pressure, on a breakout. You can't just throw it off the glass every single shift, or it's a turnover a lot of the time if you don't make the correct play. So yeah, just going back for pucks and trying to move the puck 5 to 10 feet and get it in the forward's hands, and finding different ways to do that. So yeah, like I said, a long-winded answer, but if I would have never hired him, I can firmly say that I would have never been back in the NHL. I would not, have my name on the Stanley Cup, and I would still not be playing till this time. And that's why, like I said, you get better with age, but you're not necessarily, getting faster or whatever. You're thinking the game better, and you're working on, the little skills that you're able to kind of keep things simple out there and almost not get noticed a lot of times, which is a good thing as a defenseman.
So would you have been open to that same type of conversation 500 games earlier in your career, or was it because you were in that spot in your career that's why you were open to doing something different?
I mean, no, I always had an open mind and trying to get better. I think it was just like doing the wrong things. Like, I mean, I would have like earlier on in my career with the Leafs or the Flyers, maybe the year or a year didn't go the way I wanted it to, and I wasn't totally satisfied, and you could see things maybe not trending in the right direction. But the mindset was, I got to go, like a lot of young guys, I got to go back and I got to have a big year in the gym. I got to get stronger. I got to get faster in the gym. And you're doing a bunch of like track workouts and sprints and like with the right mindset and right,
You want to do the right thing, but
you want to do the right thing, but and then you get on the ice and you're working on things, but it's not like the right things. And that's what it is true. Like, I mean, it's funny how hockey players, you look at other sports, like, if a basketball player all off season, I'm sure they're, working on their dribbling and shooting and everything else they need to do in basketball, like in the off season. They're not just spending time on the track in the gym, like they're handling the ball. Or a golfer, is working on a short game or is driving or whatever, putting all off season until they get, back on tour. And for whatever reason, I think it's changed probably more so over the last few years with younger players. But like the mindset back in the day, I think a little bit was, go to the gym, get stronger, and then throw in your gear in August and get skating and get in shape. Where, and I would skate a little bit before that, not just saying in August, but there wasn't like the right intention. It was kind of like skating because I got to get in shape for training camp. But now I'm like Braden and I think a lot of guys are with Oates. You're on the ice a lot more this summer, and you're not bagging yourself and going crazy out there where it's not a bag skate or a battle practice or something like that. You're working on like the little details of the game all summer. And that's kind of what he told me is, at the end of the day, you're not going to be out of the league because you're losing battles and you're not strong enough. It's because of the plays with the puck is what's, you're not going to be in the league. If you don't make the correct play under pressure with breakouts and get into the forward's hands and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're at their own ice now. We're just on the ice way more in the summer. So like I said, I mean, I always felt like I put in the work and that was never the issue. It was just, no, not the correct way. And luckily, got the chance to work with Oates, and he's not doing anything that coaches don't want you to do in terms of your own team either. It's you play within the system. He's not trying to coach you in terms of that way. It's just you got to break the puck out. It's like, well, how do you do it, right? Or you got to angle a guy this way, or you got to use your stick this way. It's how do you do it? So yeah, it's just the little things. And yeah, I mean, obviously I've had a lot of great coaches in the NHL, but as far as, behind the scenes, it's been super helpful to have them.
Did he work with you on your actual stick at all? Your lie, your curve, any of that conversation?
Yeah, it's the first thing. It's the first thing. It's your tool. I mean,
your
that's
weapon.
Exactly. If you don't have the right,
what'd you change?
Yeah, the curve. I mean, obviously it is like the Adam Oates curve now, like you can get it in Warrior Bauer, like CC, like whatever stick you're using. I mean, there is a curve there that all his players are, I would say 9 out of 10 of his guys, and he's probably got, I don't know, 60 plus guys now, maybe 100 plus throughout the whole group now that
switched to his curve.
Well, and it's just. And
what were you using before?
I mean, like when I first started in the league, I was using a massive like heel curve, which like I don't think anyone in the league even uses anymore. And my stick was also probably a foot taller. And so like, yeah, no wonder why you couldn't handle the puck. But at the time, like when I first got to the Kelowna Rockets, like I never used a curve like that in my life, but you go to the Kelowna Rockets and this is back in, 2005. Well, it was just kind of when guys were starting to get one-piece sticks, and they give you two options. Not every player, like in junior hours, where you get to pick your own curve, and Bauer comes in and says, here you go, pick whatever model you want, and the team gets them for you. It was two choices. And I started using the heel curve because I saw Shea Weber using it when I first got to Kelowna. And I saw the bomb he had, and obviously it worked for him. But yeah, it's just like different ways. And the reason why, OT has a certain curve is because you can make certain plays based on the curve and the lie on your backhand, at which you got to go to sometime. And, you got a little bit of a toe in there where you can sort of, make plays and have it sort of in there without it rolling off your stick.
So it's one thing for you to evolve and to change your game. But I find that in the NHL in particular, there are many front offices and or coaches that are pretty stubborn and sometimes they think you are what you are.
Right.
How long do you think it took for you to convince, maybe not with anything obviously that you're saying, but for them to see on video or see in games that your game has evolved? When do you think something like that clicked?
I mean, I'm still always trying to prove it. Like right now, I mean, like I'm not saying, okay, just because, if it's gotten a little bit better doesn't mean it's in the perfect spot. I'm still trying to figure it out right now and get better as we speak. But I don't know, like even, knowing that the teams that were in the mix, even at the trade deadline, like, I'm not going to get into it, but I know what teams now, it's like all the teams that, we're looking, I had a connection with in terms of like the coaching staff, teams that have had me before, I guess. So it's like maybe, like I said, you see from an outsider perspective, and yeah, there's certainly flaws in my game, 1,000%. It doesn't look pretty maybe at all times on, the naked eye or TV, but I guess if you have someone who kind of gives you a little bit of trust and gives you a chance and, sees that you're putting in the work and trying to do the right things. And, yeah, like for me, like even in Winnipeg here, I mean, I had Dean Chanel in Toronto when I was there last time with the Leafs, and I think we built a good relationship there. And then Davis Payne, who I had in LA when I was there, and Scott Arneal, who I've had as well, like World Championships, another lifetime ago. I think it was like 2010 or something like that. But just guys who I've been around before, and you show them, like I think everyone knows sort of the story where you're down and out a little bit, but like you said, you try to continue to work at your game and make the simple play, make the right play, and yet try to bring that physical element. I think is what I'm the most biased guy in the world, but you need it in the playoffs. So it's just try to bring that element while just being steady for him, and like I said, I don't know if there's a certain point in time where teams give you a second chance. I think you're always fighting for that opportunity and that chance, and I still am at my age.
Just as a professional athlete, how powerful is that self-belief? Like you mentioned, hey, I'm driving from San Diego to Newport Beach and I'm on the phone with my dad and I said, I'm going to get to 1,000 games somehow. Mm-hmm. How did you waver at all? Like, did you believe it when you were saying it? And how powerful is that? How much do you need that as an athlete?
Well, I think like any human, there's always times you have self-doubt or you lose confidence, but then you sort of go back to like, maybe your own beliefs of, or your own goals, or you set different goals and maybe finding different ways of improving and try to put in more work than maybe other guys would before or after practice, and just always finding a way. And then in my own head, like when I was in the minors and having that belief, like I was looking around, at teams who were winning the Stanley Cup, and they were big, strong, decors. And, I just thought, if I could still be a part of a decor like that and hopefully get the chance to win. And I think bring more value in playoffs than I would in the regular season. So I just thought that, if I can get back to a situation where, like I said, you work for it, you try to gain a little bit of a leash and a little bit of trust that you can, bring value to a team that's trying to win. And, I mean, it's been, like I said, there's been doubt, there's been belief, but yet now I'm at the point now where it's almost like, it's weird to say, but I've already failed, numerous times, and I'm not really afraid to fail again because I've already had the opportunity to win. So it's almost like, in a weird way, and not to sound like arrogant or nothing like that, but it's like you're kind of at this point later on in your career, it's almost like you're with house money or not, because I've already failed and I've already got the chance to win, and now I'm just really enjoying it and still try to, like I said, get better while I'm doing it. And like I said, it might be naive, but who knows what the ceiling is.
So last one on mindset. Obviously, we've had a personal conversation, and you've shared some of your off ice story this season and what it's been like and your journey. When you put on your gear and you're going out to play, you mentioned the physical style that you bring, and obviously you're a guy that's not afraid to mix it up. You're not afraid to fight. How do you flip the switch how do you where does your meanness come from? I've heard Chris Pronger talk about an alter ego or whoever it might be. Like, how do you get in the zone? What do you do to get yourself there?
You know what? Because it doesn't, not every game, like some games, you might have a history with a guy or with a team and it just happens. And some games, I think, literally if it's not going, the right way in the first few shifts or the first half, the first period, I'll sit there in a TV timeout and literally talk myself into it. Like, you gotta get going here. You gotta move your feet. You gotta get physical. And then at the end of the day, like, I always thought I want it, like, I notice at the end of the game or at the end of a stretch of games, or which forwards are hard to play against, like which guys would actually be hard in the corners, which guys would finish you, which guys would make you battle in front of the net, which guys bluff. Like, there is you can see it in guys. At the end of the day, I think you want to be known as a guy that shows up for your teammates. And at the end of the day, when you're playing against a team that guy was hard to play against. So, and just for myself personally, like, I don't want to leave a game ever thinking I took the night off. Like, that would be like, I would have, it's harder to look yourself in the mirror after thinking that you didn't do your job than it's harder to actually talk yourself into it and going out there and just competing and laying it all on the line. I think it's harder to sit with that reflection of knowing that you didn't bring it for the next 2 days until your next game.
As we wrap up here, how good can this Winnipeg Jets team be? What's the first thing that you noticed when you joined them?
Well, obviously, the depth. Obviously, playing against them a couple times this year, I remember looking at the lineup, and you're looking at the lineup top to bottom up front, and you're thinking, well, okay, like they got legit depth and size. And obviously, some underrated defensemen too. Like, I didn't know a ton about like Sandberg before coming in here, and he's really, really impressed me of how good of a skater he is, how good at defending he is. He's got some offense to his game and can eat minutes. Like, underrated decor. Obviously, Josh Morris, he's world-class defenseman. Like, the Melo Pionk, like, guys are the whole list of defensemen. I don't know if they get enough credit, but then you got world-class goaltending, who's obviously Helly's been consistent now for a few years. And I think just the biggest thing for me too is like the you're not trying to win games by outscoring teams, even though they have the skill and ability to put up some numbers and been a good power play and stuff all year. But I think the details as far as like defending and everyone playing as a 5-man unit, like, that's obviously coming from Tampa. I think that's one thing that they really harped on after losing to Columbus that one year was defending the right way, and that's how you win games. And obviously you had Vasilevsky. I'm just drawing comparables. We had Vasilevsky and big strong decor and depth throughout the lineup and some top end skill. But the biggest thing at the end of the day was defending the right way and not beating yourself. And I see some similarities there as far as the details of playing as a 5-man group and the depth, and everyone sort of bought in and went in together. But it's going to be tough because a lot of teams like their team right now. You look at the Central is insane. Like, no one loses. So it's crazy how good the parity is and how good the top teams are. And, even the teams that are just kind of who are going to be getting in here at like St. Louis, how good they are right now. I mean, it's a tough league right now. And that's what makes it so exciting as a player and as a fan. You can't take a night off because no one else is losing around you, and there's going to be a lot of really, really good teams coming in on the right foot in playoffs here.
So you mentioned St. Louis. I got to wrap with asking you about that. You and your brother Braden are the first players in NHL history as brothers to play 1,000 games or hit 1,000 games in the same season. This year, how fascinating would it be if you two guys are squaring off against each other in round one, which is a definite possibility? Do you check the standings every day? Are you talking about it? And what would that be like to go up against your brother?
Yeah, of course you check the standings every day. I mean, you're checking every team's wins and losses because every game means so much right now. But obviously, the Blues being on a 10-game winning streak, it's pretty impressive. And I don't think they lost since the deadline. I don't think they have.
They're like 16-2-2 in their last 20. It's been crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, obviously I talk to Braden every day, and they've got some swagger there right now in St. Louis, and they've got a great vibe. And yeah, we'll see if it ends up happening in the first round, and then at that point we probably cut off the communication. But until then, we're talking every day, and obviously rooting for the Blues. Just obviously with Braden being there and him being the captain and what he puts into that organization. He's, my opinion, he's done a great job there behind the scenes. I don't think people understand. Like I said, I'm biased, but I think he's done a very good job and learned on the fly. And yeah, but until then, who knows what the matchup's going to be? There's still a lot that could change here in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I think mom and dad would have a tough time with that series. That's for sure.
Well, at least it would be easy though. You're not crisscrossing the continent to get to see both of your sons play.
Yeah. Well, my dad's line in the regular season is people always ask when we play against each other who he's cheered for, and he goes, "Well, I don't care. I just want to see overtime, and then they can take it from there." So I don't know. Playoffs would be a little bit different story. So who knows how it's all going to shake out here.
Hey, look, this has been a wild season for both of you to this point. The story has been incredible, and we'll see what the final chapter is to be written on this year in particular. Luke, thank you so much for opening up and chatting. Really enjoyed the conversation, and always good to see you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, thanks so much to Luke Schenn for his time. I know I took up a lot of it as he was in Vegas with the Jets on this current road trip. And thanks so much to Scott Brown and Gregor Buer from the Winnipeg Jets PR team. Always great to work with. Look, we dove into a lot of different details and facets of Luke Schenn's career, and I think it was helpful to pull back the curtain on sometimes what players are thinking, feeling, the human element of being a professional athlete. I'm not sure that necessarily as a fan or even as a media member who's seeing a lot of this up close, what these guys go through on a daily basis. And I think one thing is incredibly clear. When you talk to Luke Schenn, who is about as genuine a character as you could find in the NHL, in all of professional sports, the biggest thing that I keep coming back to is how he was raised right in Saskatoon. Jeff and Rita Schenn, you should get a round of applause, because both him and Braden, look, I've been around for 15 plus years, 17 years covering the NHL. The Schenn brothers, incredibly well liked and respected across every aspect of the NHL. And a lot of that comes back to your roots. So, people always ask me when I cover hockey, do you root? Do you root for teams? Do you root for who wins or who loses? No, I just root for good people and good stories. And when you think about the Schenns and their impact in the NHL, I'm an unabashed Luke and Brayden Schenn fan, because they've been this way their entire careers. And so really glad to sit down and chat with Luke today. Going to be real interesting to see what happens in the Stanley Cup playoffs, see if he can get his name on the Stanley Cup a third time, or is it going to be his younger brother Braden with the Red Hot Blues? Thanks so much for joining me on this week's edition of Frankly Speaking, presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. We'll see you next week.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.